What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Today I am ecstatic to report to you that we are test driving a 2009 Mercedes-Benz SL65 AMG. For those of you who don't know, the SL is Mercedes two-seat roadster that I think they still make, but nobody buys anymore because people only buy SUVs. The 65 AMG part is obviously what attracted me to this car. This car has a 6-liter twin-turbo V12 with 604 horsepower and 738 pound-feet of torque. So let's talk about driving it. Now, ride and handling, it's just an SL. I've driven several other SLs from this generation. This is the R230 chassis Mercedes SL. And the ride is relatively smooth. It's stiffer in the 65 than it is in the other ones that I've driven, because AMG did beef up the suspension a little bit in this car, but it's not uncomfortable by any stretch of the imagination. The handling is very good. I wouldn't say great or excellent. The steering feel is decent. Steering effort is light. The car is extremely competent as far as driving goes. That's not to be surprised. Obviously, the attraction with this particular car is the engine. Watch for motorcycles, don't drink and drive. Speed kills. Uh-oh. Well, if speed kills, I would be dead by now because I've been driving this car for the last day and a half. I've driven cars with more horsepower than this Mercedes, specifically a modified Ford Mustang GT500 that had like 700 horsepower, and it was different somehow. I've never driven anything quite like this car. You can't floor it from a dead stop. I mean, you can, but the whole car just freaks out. The electronic stability program kicks in and goes nuts, and you really have to get it up to about 50 or 60 miles an hour before you go full throttle, and then the car just explodes. I mean, 70, 80, 90, and it'll keep going. And it's hard for me to compare it to anything else, because there's a level of refinement here that you're not going to get in a Hellcat, in a Mustang GT500, in most other cars with this sort of power. It's so smooth and so controlled, and yet you really have to. This is a car that demands that you have restraint, because if you just went hog wild in this thing, something horrible would happen very quickly. And the brakes are up to the task. The steering, I feel, is up to the task to a point. I haven't pushed it that hard. The command system just reset itself. So I would like to have the top down to film this review, but this car does have some issues, namely the secondary battery in the trunk that powers all of the kind of accessory stuff inside of the car is dead as a doornail in this thing. So the power top doesn't work, a bunch of stuff doesn't work. But the engine works. Oh boy, does it work. And this car is incredible. I would love to own a 65 someday. I don't think an SL. I think the SLs are just a little too finicky for me. I think I'd rather have a CL or an S sedan. But man, this car is incredible. Incredible. This engine set Mercedes apart, I think. This was kind of them really laying down the gauntlet for Audi and BMW, because Audi and BMW and Mercedes, if you look at their model lineups and the history of the different models they all make right now, they try to have parity with each other to a ridiculous extent. And this was the model where Mercedes said, you know what? You guys think you're big boys? Here, this is what big boys do. Oh, that's nothing. It's all doing that in one gear. It's incredible. Some bicyclists. We're watching out. We're being safe-ish. If anybody watches this video, just please be aware that the speedometer is calibrated in kilometers per hour, as it is a European vehicle. I don't know. I don't even know what's showing up on the camera, because, like I said, it'd be nicer to have the top down, but that's not an option for me at this point. God, this car's incredible. AMG built this engine because they could. The 738 torque number, that translates to 1,000 Newton meters of torque, so it's not as random as it may seem. And it's electronically limited. The engine's electronically limited to 1,000 Newton meters of torque. So I don't know, who knows what it would have produced if they hadn't, you know, dialed the computers into that. Even on later versions of this engine, when they cranked up the horsepower a little bit, the torque still remained the same, because I guess that's all the transmissions could handle, or they didn't feel comfortable trying to route more than that through the transmission. And the wild thing about this car is, and again, this is what sets it apart from other really fast cars that I've driven, is if you just drive it sedately, very light throttle, normal speeds, it feels like nothing special is going on. You know, you don't, if you just are just giving it a little bit of gas, and I mean a little bit, 10% throttle, you'd never know. You could let your grandma drive this car and she might never realize it had 600 horsepower, because if she's just driving like a little grandma, she'd just be like, oh, it's a nice car. But if you give it a third throttle from a stop, it's faster than most cars are when you floor them. The only other, I mean, you know, you could compare this to a Tesla. And the reason why I say that, a fast Tesla, it's very, very fast, but in a complete opposite way. So you can't really floor this car from a dead stop. It's just complete chaos. The dashboard, all the lights light up, and electronic stability program, and there's no point to it. The car just doesn't like it. A Tesla, obviously, you floor from a stop, and because electric motors and all the really fast Teslas have all-wheel drive, it just goes. It just takes off like a rocket. It's incredible. But in a Tesla, by the time you hit 100 miles an hour, you get the feeling that the wave has crested and the car's still accelerating quickly but running out of puff. In this, when you get to 100 miles an hour and you've still got your foot in it, you get the feeling that the party is just getting started and it's settling in for where it does its best work. And that is the incredible feeling about this car, is that the limitations of the acceleration are at the low speeds. That's where you have to show some restraint. At high speeds, it's gonna go and go and go. I believe this car is electronically limited to 155 mile an hour top speed. I have not tested the limiter because that would be illegal and I would never break any posted speed limits on a public road. But I think it would be capable of much more than that if you took the limiter off. It's probably limitations of brakes and tires, and well, the German auto manufacturers have their little gentleman's agreement, 250 kilometers per hour. The only one that doesn't adhere to that most of the time is Porsche. You can pay extra and get higher speed limiters for some of the real high performance stuff from Mercedes, Audi, and BMW, but I wouldn't be surprised if you de-restricted this car if it would do 200 miles an hour. I could believe that. Oh, I just feel, see, it's so quiet though. This, even compared to other AMG cars, it's more refined. I'm in awe of this car. It's incredible. My dream is to get, like, what was it? The W215 CL, I think, was the one with the real pretty back window. That was the first car that Mercedes put this engine in, at least for the US market. I think in 2004, you could get a CL65. And I just love that body style of Mercedes. It's not the best car they ever made, but I'd love to get one of those, even if it's a little jacked up, and buy it cheap, and you know, you got to put some work into it or whatever. And I've watched a lot of exhaust video. I've been obsessed with one of these 65s for a very long time, and I've watched a lot of videos where they show like people doing custom exhausts on them, and the best one that I've seen is where they just left the catalytic converters on it and just straight piped it from the cat back. It just, at idle, it's very quiet, and then it just sounds like all hell is breaking loose. But I don't even know if I would want to do that, because the personality of this car is so unique. I've never driven anything quite like this, where it's so refined and so quiet and luxurious, and yet so savage when you give it the beans. But it's savage in a smooth way. I don't even know what to say about this thing. If you ever get the opportunity to drive one and you like cars to any sort of an extent, I highly recommend giving it a go, because I don't know. I've never driven anything like a 65. Now, here's what we're gonna do. Half throttle. Half throttle. The rear end is starting to want to go around. This is maybe 40% throttle. It's shifting at 4,000 RPM. And there you go. Speed kills. Oh shit. Look out, Mr. Bicyclist. Speed kills. Oh, speed kills. Uh-oh, speed kills. Oh, this guy's on the side of the road. This truck is making a left. Let's see. Somebody else is coming that way. Floor it. 60, 70, 80, and I'm braking for the turn. Oh, speed kills. It's funny too, because I'm thinking like, well, maybe if I had a racetrack, I could like utilize this car better, but this car was not built for a racetrack. It's friggin' burgundy with beige leather and burl walnut trim and 4,500 pounds. This was built for the Autobahn, yeah, Dummkopf, but unfortunately in United States we have speed limits. Not that they're particularly well enforced in my particular area, I must say, but speeding to me is like, I think I'm stealing this line from Seinfeld, but it's like glancing at a girl's boobs, you know? you got to be quick about it. You got to pick your spots. You glance and look away, you know. I probably shouldn't even say this. I haven't had a speeding ticket for 5 years? I think 5 years. I got, in 2017, I got a WRX STI Subaru, and like a month after I got it, I was driving it up to Tahoe to visit my dad, and I got nailed outside of Bishop by a friggin' highway patrolman on 395, and when I got to the house in Tahoe, I immediately got on the internet and ordered a Valentine 1 radar detector, and that thing saved my bacon. That thing more than paid for itself when I had my WRX STI. And then I kind of stopped using it, and I actually tried to use it in this car because of course, but I think the cigarette lighter doesn't work in this car because a lot of stuff doesn't work in this car. But the engines sure enough do. Oh my God. You know, this is really a German car, because with German cars at higher speeds, they appear to become more competent. Or they don't appear, they feel, you know, and like somehow the handling feels even more confident at 100 kilometers an hour than 50. Like the whole car just kind of hunkers down. Ugh. Well, luckily, it appears that some sort of Econobox sedan is in front of me here, and it's going to keep me from breaking any more speed limits, because speed kills, lest we forget. So I'm going to wrap this video up. I appreciate you watching it. I love this car. Please like my video and subscribe to my channel, and don't tell anybody about it. Well, no, tell people about my channel, but don't tell them about how I was going 100 kilometers an hour in this car. Okay, ja Dumkopf. Have a good day. Bye-bye.